You are.
Yes, no, that's correct. Jesus resurrected from the dead in Israel, not Ukraine.
Is America a theocracy?
Well, no, we were founded on Christian values. You're asking my advocacy.
Okay,
so my advocacy is rooted in a belief that Israel is a special country for a special purpose and a special place.
So let's take the theological aspect out of that. I'm talking about U.S. policy, U.S. foreign policy of supporting the state.
Fair enough,
right?
But
definition is the targeted massacre of masses of people without any reason to do so. And I think when you drop a 2,000-pound bomb on a hospital with women and children inside, that is the direct definition of a genocidal act. Would you agree with that?
Well, first of all, that did not happen the way you categorized it.
That didn't happen.
Secondly, but I want to make sure we can find common ground. Was October 7th a genocide?
Here as well, because you can't say that the oppressor is not genocidal and that the oppressed is the one that's being genocidal. When you have a resistance organization,
dynamics completely.
You do not believe that Israel...
I believe in strong and weak. I do not believe in oppressor oppressed. That's a left-wing postmodernist framing. I reject it.
Okay, what's your evidence to reject that? How is Israel not oppressing Palestinians, forcing women to give birth at checkpoints, forcing Palestinians to drive on separate roads?
So we're talking about two different things. You're talking about...
Well, there are people from other parts of Palestine that were forcibly removed from their homes and put in Gaza.
It's because their birth rate continued to go up.
No, that's not
Secondly,
true. That's not true.
If it is an open-air prison, and there is a quote-unquote blockade, even though that's not true, there were workers that would go in...
That's not true. Like, you can't just make up things.
I'm finishing my sentence.
Sure.
Is it true that not before October 7th, tens of thousands of workers would go from Judea, Samaria, into the interior of Israel to work in factories?
By Israeli regulation, okay? They can't freely... Would you be in favor of demolishing that mosque?
I mean, like, I wouldn't be sad if a mosque got demolished, honestly. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus, not Muhammad.
If that's your point...
I'm not advocating for it, but do I believe Muslim...
So first of all, you have to understand, okay, when there is a country that for 75 years has illegally occupied your lands, okay? I know you're laughing, but that's what the history is.
It's comical. It's not their land.
Okay, who was living there?
The Canaanites originally.
Yes, which are modern-day Palestinians, genetically
not necessarily.
What? I mean, what do you mean
but
not
hold
necessarily?
on, let's say time out. You know whose land it is? Who can the Jews fought them out of the land?
Charlie, why do you frame this as a Muslim versus Jewish conflict?
Because it's explicitly a Muslim and Jewish conflict.
That's how misinformed you are about this issue.
Well, okay,
it's just you, I guarantee you. All right, when you take a look at, let's take for example, okay? Habibi, let's take for example, right? There's no Hamas, no October 7th. Let's call this place the West Bank.
You want to call Gaza the West Bank?
No, a place without Hamas, right? Is the West Bank.
Okay, but the West Bank is in a separately geographic part.
Exactly. So let's take this example of the West Bank. On October 6th in the West Bank was the deadliest year for Palestinian children in the West Bank. No Hamas, no paragliding, no terrorism, no music festivals. What is your excuse or what is your defense to supply the state of Israel weapons, funds to go and commit genocide against people in the West Bank?
Stop saying genocide. You know it's not genocide.
You haven't proven that point.
It is a war. You know why? Because
a war between who?
Hold on. If they were committing genocide, have broken every single violation of the Geneva Compact.
But Israel hasn't.
Honestly,
no.
Of course, at times they're going to do things that we would not support or like. That's of Hamas.
Palestine. What about Palestine? Well, before that. Before October 7th. How many Palestinians?
How many? It depends on the context and the circumstance.
Okay.
Hold on. Do you have an example of the IDF, yes or no, of the IDF going out of their way to go slaughter and cut off the heads?
Yes.
Oh, really? To cut off the heads?
Actually, yes.
Really?
Worse than that. Worse than that.
Wow.
Much worse than that.
Tell me more. Why don't you go submit that claim to the International Court? I'd love to see it.
There are claims actually.
You have evidence of the IDF going and cutting off heads.
Yes.
Cutting off heads of Palestinian children.
Absolutely obliterating children.
No.
Journalists. What are you talking about, Charlie? Okay, look, hold on. All right. Why is the IC... Okay,
your entire shtick is a fabrication. Because here's what we do have.
Where case, in your opinion, in the International Criminal Court is bogus. Completely.
Which case?
You don't know about the International Criminal Court case against the State of Israel right now.
I think it's complete rubbish.
Complete rubbish?
Yes.
You know more than the ICC investigators?
Yeah, I think the ICC is wrong.
Oh, so is this just you're making this up, or like based on evidence, or what? Like I don't understand.
There's a lot of motives and incentives to be against the state of Israel.
Right, which is to look at factual evidence.
It's easy to hate the Jews.
Okay.
It's easy to hate the Jews.
Who said anything about hating Jews?
It's
here,
the Jewish
right?
homeland.
Right, you're against immigration, right? Don't you believe that that's like an invasion, right, to the U.S.? So why would you be in favor of people from Europe, mostly Ashkenazi Jews that are...
There's a lot of Sephardic too.
Right, I'm not arguing against
Which are
that.
indigenous to the
and
land.
also Mizrahi as well, but I'm not arguing against that. What I'm telling you is that you never answered to my question about the West Bank, which is there's no Hamas there. And
Oh, that's right. The answer: the Palestinian Authority is a terrorist organization.
The Palestinian Authority is a terrorist organization.
Mahmoud Abbas is a terrorist. Correct.
Okay, and the state of Israel is not.
Of course not.
No Jesus.
Why no Jesus?
No Jesus. We're talking about international law, not
It plays into what I'm saying.
How does Jesus play into international law?
You're not letting me finish.
Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You say, what is the
terrorist state? Yeah.
Well, by definition, they have elections, they respect private property, and they only fight defensive wars. There is not an example of Israel going out of their way to declare war on one of their neighbors unless they are first provoked. If there is, tell me. Show me the example.
Okay, so
show me of Israel fighting a non-defensive war.
Have you ever heard of the Nakba? Have you ever heard of the Nakba, 1948, when 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes?
Oh, you mean
Palestinians have a right of return? Palestinians.
Okay. So happy to go back and just. I'm curious about this one final thing. What is the Palestinian identity is largely a new creation. That's fine. I have nothing against new creations. I just want to know, like, what are the boundaries of like what that identity group is.
And also, I agree with you. Before the Sykes-Picot Agreement, there was no sort of division of the Middle East. It was all united.
Do you think?
So, do you support the Sykes-Picot Agreement?
I don't know enough about it.
You don't know after World War I, when the Middle East was divided between the French and the British?
Don't know enough. I'm not going to talk about things I don't know.
Okay, I would look into the Sykes-Picot Agreement if I were you, and I would educate myself a little bit about the history of the Middle East. Okay, because
should educate myself about the Middle East,
right. But listen, Charlie. By the way, I don't mean this to be like a very negative experience, because I think I admire you very much. I think that you have a lot of courage to come here and talk to people. But I think you're a little bit misinformed about the state of Israel. Okay, you have to understand. Like you have a double standard when it comes to your definition of terrorism. That's the problem.
Israel fights wars and Hamas commits terrorism. You cannot. Let me ask you. Here's a really good example. Exactly.
And you never answered to the West Bank.
Here's a phenomenal example.
You never answered to the West Bank.
Here's a phenomenal example.
Right.
Terrorists take hostages, right?
Israel does too.
Oh, really? How does? You mean they take prisoners of war of combatants?
13-year-old child.
Where has
just 2 days ago?
Where has Israel actually taken civilians?
All the time.
No, that's complete rubbish, man.
Listen. Let me tell you.
They go into nurseries and take hostages.
Yes, they do. Yes.
6-month-old babies.
There was a child who was.
There's no reasoning with you because it's just it's pathologically untrue.
No. There was not a 13-year-old child who was taken 9 years ago who was just released by the state of Israel a few days. A 13-year-old child is not a criminal. That's a civilian, Charlie. Okay. So the problem is that again, you're misinformed on a lot of the things, and I would really encourage you to look a little bit deeper, because Israel does take children as hostages. Israel does put them in prison without due process, without any sort of court of law system. So what you're saying is just simply, it's not true.
You have examples of Israel taking thousands of hostages.
I told you if I know his name, I would tell you his name.
I'll be honest, I don't believe you.
Okay, do more research. Don't believe me. Be skeptical of what I'm saying. That's fine. But do your own research. Do your own research and look into this, because frankly, there's a lot of things that you're not aware of.
Which one do you think is the good
Front for the Liberation of Palestine? That, I would say, is the organization that I most closely would support. Okay? So if you're going to take something, don't put words in my mouth, or don't take something out of context here, right? I would support.
I support civilization.
There has not been a more barbaric
more so
state
than North Korea.
In the 21st century, yes.
North
Korea has not committed genocide against people in the 21st century.
Oh no, they have, against their own citizenry.
Okay.
I mean, more so than the Chinese Communist Party.
Not in the same sense as the state of Israel. Israel is the most terrorist state in the 21st century, and the United States, with its invasion of Iraq, would also be a terrorist action. Would you agree with that or no?
No, it's a remarkable.
You're against the invasion of Iraq.
Yes, I would not say it was terroristic though.
It was not?
It was wrong. It was immoral.
It was wrong and immoral, but not
The
terroristic.
threshold of terrorism is the indiscriminate,
Yeah.
without caring,
didn't
butchery
happen
of
in Iraq.
civilians.
That didn't happen in
No,
Iraq. That doesn't
actually, the
happen.
veterans that are here helping protect us, they did not go to bag them in the back after they
There were
lied to
1
them.
million civilians that were killed in Iraq, Charlie. 1 million people.
A lot of that was
Okay.
displacement
So-
and famine. Again,
okay.
I just
Okay,
so
back
you.
to-
I want my thing. Next year in Jerusalem. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I would love to. If Israel doesn't kill you first.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Thank you.